What's good, people? It's your boy back with another video. I'll be reacting to 3 scary true sleepover stories by Quattro. This is from Mr. Nightmare. I was gonna say Senior Nightmare. Anyway, like I said, 3 scary true sleepover stories. I think he uploaded this yesterday or the day before yesterday. I don't know, but I was planning on looking at it. I was like, I wasn't gonna look at it. I said, fuck it, I'll look at it. But anyway, I think in this video I'm gonna go back to what I was doing before. I'm gonna pause it to talk because I rewatched some of the other videos. I was talking over stuff you couldn't really hear everything. So then, if I want to say something, I just record me doing it and then pause it and then talk and then play it. So I think I'm gonna do that. But anyway, without further ado, here we go. Sleepover horror stories. Never had any
ages ago when I was a boy. One of my favorite things to do would be to have sleepovers with my friends, especially my friend Joe. Joe had the coolest house layout. It was big and it had this huge basement with a pool table, air hockey table, and the entire basement looped around in a big circle. And we'd often ride his scooters around the loop in the basement while on our sugar rushes after hours of playing video games and eating junk food. The best part was his parents could never hear us down there, as they slept all the way upstairs. I'll never forget the night that my mom dropped me off at Joe's house after dinner. It was the night before a holiday, so we didn't have school the next day. Joe and I went straight to the basement and started playing one of his new video games on his PlayStation 1, when suddenly the door to the laundry room in the back creaked open. He paused the game and turned around to look, and yes, the door was now cracked open. I told Joe to go check it out. He said it's fine, it happens sometimes. To be honest though, sometimes at night alone in his basement, Joe and I would get spooked. I told him to go shut the door because something about having that door open leading into a big pitch black laundry room was uncomfortable. I think he agreed because he got up to close it. After a while of playing video games, I started riding Joe's bike.
This is a nice basement,
which honestly was a lot more fun than it sounds. But then something else happened. There was a noise, almost like the sound of a laundry machine door being banged or closed. It came from the laundry room again, obviously. This time Joe and I ran up the stairs freaked out, and Joe called his dad to come check the laundry room. His dad opened the door to the laundry room, had a quick 5-second look, and calmly said there's no one in there. So he went back upstairs to bed, and Joe and I continued to hang out for another hour or two. Then it came time to go to sleep. There were 2 couches down there, one in front of the TV, and then another towards the back of the basement by the bar. I slept on the couch towards the back of the basement. I didn't sleep long though. I woke up and it was still pitch black in the basement. No light shining through the small basement windows. It was still the middle of the night. I rubbed my eyes and sat up after getting this weird feeling of being watched. "Joe?" I said, just checking if he was awake. After saying his name, I heard and saw something moving in the darkness to the laundry room. And then the door creaked shut. I jumped off the couch to wake up Joe, but when I got to his couch, he wasn't there. That's when I became wise to what was going on. Joe was trying to scare me. I tiptoed to the door of the laundry room. I figured I would reverse it on him and scare him instead. I put my hand on the doorknob, and after a little mental buildup, I yanked the door open and went inside screaming. I turned on the light to the room, but Joe wasn't in there. Where could he be hiding? In that moment, I was beyond confused. I knew he had to be in the room. Then I noticed something through the glass of the dryer machine. I walked over to it and knelt down. Someone was in the dryer machine, crunched up and like a ball. You know how dryer machine doors usually have a sort of tinted glass that's hard to see through? While I knew there was a person in there, it took me a few seconds to catch on that the person that was in the dryer machine looking back at me was not Joe. It was some grown man. I started screaming and ran all the way upstairs to Joe's parents' room. Everyone in the house came out from their bedrooms.
A grown man in the
Joe.
dryer?
Joe apparently was having a hard time falling asleep on the couch, so he
What
went
kind
upstairs.
Of dryer is that? A laundromat dryer?
I yelled there was someone hiding in the dryer machine. As Joe's dad started his way storming to the basement, somebody ran through the living room and out the front door. Joe's mom let out a scream as his dad ran outside in his slippers to try to catch the man. Of course, being that he was only in slippers, he didn't have a chance. When he came back, Joe's mom had already called the cops. When the cops came, they asked me if there was anything specific that I could make out about the man.
It's probably a crackhead.
All I could say was that he was wearing dark clothes. Joe and I slept in his room. I slept on the floor with a blanket, and we kept the door locked.
You a lot of help.
We took a break from the sleepovers for a while after that.
I bet you did. Grown man. They must
ago.
have the laundry.
It happened back in July 2013. It was my 13th birthday party, and my friends and I had been to Manchester for the day, before heading back to my house for a sleepover. A couple of them had stayed over before, but some hadn't, so I wanted to make a good impression. We all decided to sleep downstairs that night, as there wasn't enough room in my bedroom. We gathered our sleeping bags on the living room floor, watched cheesy rom-coms, and ate junk food until around 1 a.m. So we decided to hit the sack after our third movie. We turned off the lights with the exception of one, as although we didn't like to admit it then, we were a little afraid of the dark. It's a common thing to lie awake and chat at a sleepover after you say you're going to sleep. We were in the middle of whispering to each other who we thought our celebrity lookalikes were, when we heard it. A loud knock on our window cut through our conversation. "What was that?" said Emma, one of my friends. "It's probably just my dad playing a prank or something," I said. Although this whole situation was kind of freaking me out, my dad had done this type of thing before.
Your dad does that?
It must have been him. We were beginning to calm down when suddenly another forceful knock came upon the window. This made some of my friends scream. I assured everyone that, like I said, it was probably just my dad being goofy. So I went over to the window to catch him red-handed. The curtains were closed, so I had to pull a section of them back to see who was outside. As I did, I came face to face with a man who was most certainly not my dad. This man was bald with very thin eyebrows, and he had a missing tooth.
This music.
He was sort of hunched over, and he looked at me with widened, glassy eyes. I immediately screamed and closed the curtain. At this point, my friends and I were pretty hysterical, and Emma began visibly shaking in fear. My parents were upstairs, so instinctively, I ran up to find them. As I got upstairs, my mom was talking to someone from her window. I didn't quite catch their conversation, but she told me what happened soon after. She said that she heard the knocking too, and when she looked out of her window to see who it was, the man looked up and asked her if she had seen a friend of his. I can't remember the name of the guy she said she was looking for, so we'll call him Paul.
Really? A friend of yours?
He kept asking for him over and over. "Have you seen Paul? Where is Paul? Has Paul been here?" Of course, my mom said she didn't know anyone named Paul. Eventually, she had to ask him to leave us alone, as he just kept wandering around our driveway. As the man finally left, I went back downstairs to calm my friends down. In retrospect, I feel bad for leaving them alone down there when some weird stranger was on our property. We all settled back down after that. However, my mom's maternal instincts kicked in, so she wanted to make sure he was gone.
When you guys get caught.
She left briefly to go around the block in her car to make sure he wasn't still in the area. The street was dimly lit by impractical streetlights, so she had to put her high beams on. As she was driving, she saw someone dash across the middle of the road. Thinking it was just a kid, she just kept driving until the man who was at our window appeared again. But this time, he practically jumped in front of my mom's car. My mom quickly slammed on the brakes, but before she could confront him, he disappeared off into the night. We never found out who that guy was or what his true intentions were.
Confront him.
And thankfully, we never saw him again. So much for wanting to make a good impression.
Ass gonna get stabbed. Ass gonna get stabbed. Confront him. Why do you go out driving looking for the person? I mean, to make sure
My
he's not a
friend Jake
neighborhood.
slept over
You
my
neighborhood
house one night
watch.
when we were 12. And because of that, he may have possibly saved my life. It was a snowy weekend night. We watched a couple Christmas movies in my living room. My mom would bring us snacks and hot cocoa. She was always really nice to my friends when I had them over. My mom had to go to sleep kind of early because she worked. She and my dad had just recently divorced. By around 12, Jake and I went to my room, where we played Pokemon on our Game Boy Advances for a little. I don't remember much after that, besides falling asleep a little while later.
Game Boy Advances.
I woke up in my bed to the room being
How old is
extremely
this?
cold,
Like
and
20
also
years ago?
feeling really thirsty. I went to the kitchen downstairs to get a cup of water. I noticed how much colder it had become upstairs as opposed to downstairs. I went back to my bed and tucked myself in.
This is
As
fucking
I lay there trying to fall back
ghost.
asleep, I realized Jake was breathing weird, like a deeper, heavier breathing. It went on for some time, and after making a note of it in my head, it was all I could focus on.
That
So
sounds
I
like a
eventually
grown
threw a pillow
man.
at him. As he woke up, I told him to stop breathing so loud.
Sound like my dad.
He was confused as he looked up at me in my bed. He said, "What are you talking about?" I told him to just lower the volume of his breathing noises, as he was borderline snoring. Jake shifted his focus from me to down
Breathe
below my
quieter
bed,
in your sleep.
and then he screamed.
Like, bitch, I
Crawled
can't
backwards until
control
his back
that.
was pushing up against my dresser. I yelled, "What is it?" I hopped off my bed and looked under it where he was staring at. There was a middle-aged man with long hair laying underneath my bed, and he had his finger up to his lips saying, "Shh." It was a surreal sight to say the least.
What is this from?
I
That
felt
just
like my heart was beating
I've seen
200
other
beats
people
per
use it.
minute. The man whispered, "I know your mom. I'm here to see her." He started crawling out from under the bed. At that same moment, Jake and I ran from the room, screaming for my mom.
Wow, he
Got
must
to
thought
my mom's
y'all were
room
real
and
stupid.
locked her bedroom door behind us.
I know your mom.
She was immediately distressed and confused by our screams.
Why are you under my
I
bed?
barely had enough time to yell, "There's a man under my bed," before the doorknob to my mom's room started twisting and shaking. Then the sounds of the doorknob failing to turn shifted
This
to
dude's
heavy,
hand
aggressive
dirty as
bangs
hell.
at the door.
I thought he was wearing
My
gloves.
mom ran to her phone and called 911. She was on the phone already in tears, while also screaming at the man on the other side of the door to leave us alone. The man tried kicking the door in, but I think when he heard my mom on the phone, he left the house. We were all in shock.
He's a, what they say
It
in
took the
Britain, he's
police
a
only a couple
pedophile.
minutes to arrive, at which point the coast was clear. The biggest window in
I
our
know
house,
your mom.
which was the window to the upstairs spare bedroom, was lifted up completely, which explained the cool air entering the house upstairs.
Oh,
That also
wow.
explained the man's point of entry. I told my mom that man claimed he knew her, but she had no idea who this man could have been. My mom dropped Jake off home, and then she and I slept at my aunt and uncle's house for the rest of the night.
I'm gonna talk about this.
The next day, my uncle installed a stronger lock on that upstairs window. This was like 16 years ago now. At this point, it's just a distant, haunting memory. But we never
Oh, wow,
figured
it
out
is
who that man could
Oh,
have been, or how he could have possibly known my mother.
The interesting thing is, like, in every house I've lived in my life, whenever there is a draft, we immediately when it's like a draft, you can really feel it. We immediately check to see where it's coming from. And I lied. I didn't pause it and talk. I just decided to talk less in the middle of it. But we immediately looked around to see where the draft was coming from. If it's like a really strong draft, we that's what we look, because some windows or either have bad installation or the windows are not sealed right or whatever, especially like older houses. But, and you would get little drafts from the windows, because you can feel that, but it's like a slight draft. Like it's a slight draft in my room, like with this window here. But at the same time, if you feel like a strong draft, even when I was a kid, we immediately went to go look and see where that was coming from, because we wanted to see if there was a window open. Somebody forget close a window, was the back door open? It's like that. Like if you feel that, you don't just, oh well, it's just cold, I guess. Like the heat's on, you should know. Unless this is a new house and you haven't been there that long, you should know where the cold is coming from. Like you're like, okay, this house has bad installation or almost no installation. So you get drafts in certain parts of the house. These windows, like I said, these windows aren't right. So you get certain drafts and stuff like that. Or might be a slight crack. I lived in a house where you can notice a slight crack though, because you can see the light from outside shine. And like when you got near the door, it was always cold. And I was like, you know that stuff. But like when I've heard any of these stories from like Miss Nightmare or Unit, was it 522, or even was it Creepy Pasties, whatever, Creepy Pasta, whatever. I've seen when they say the ones people send in. I was like, oh yeah, it was someone opened the window and it was cold, or we were wondering what that, or somebody got in, they saw where they came in. We wondered where that draft was coming from, but you didn't check where the draft was coming from. And now all these are crackhead. Like all these stories are, well, they're probably just pedophiles too. But that must be like, I don't know that feeling to have that type of desire to where you want something so bad, it's illegal, but you want it so bad that you do shit like you like to have that urge to want to have sex with a child or whatever, and you would go sneak into their room and hide under that bed and then breathe hard as well. Like he basically is, if he's not even trying to be discreet. Like he's breathing hard as hell. I don't know if he's jagging off down. He's breathing like, what the fuck? But to have that in you, I usually go with people who rape people. Like they just people who can't help themselves. Some people do it because they just I just want to do it. And some people I can't help. Like I've been watching not Criminal Minds, but Mind Hunters. Like some little serial killer type thing. But I mean, you aren't serial killer. Still, just that. I guess that feeling that just I can't help. Maybe it's because maybe pedophiles don't find people their age attractive, and they're all young. So that's interesting, because I always thought people, because I know pedophiles is a general term. There's different words for different age groups of people, but that adults go after. But I was like, if you like teenagers. I mean, of course, under the age of 18, because 18 is legal age. 16 is actually legal in certain states. If you didn't know, a lot of people think it's just 18. I think in Michigan, it's 16, and I want to say Oklahoma, it's 16 with the consent of a parent. So yeah, just it's not 18, but that's not a universal thing. But it's like, if you like 16, let's say you like I said, teenage, you like 13 to 17. That's kind of like where even though 13, so there's a big gap, big difference between the way they look. But let's just say that when you were that age, I wonder, did you find those people attractive? So you continue to find those people attractive all throughout your life? You don't. I guess people say people don't grow and mature, but some of these people are very mature. They just, for some reason, want to have sex with children, And that used to be okay thing. People used to marry 13-year-olds, like grown 30-year-old men and women. Like, used to marry 13, 14-year-olds because they go, well, I can raise this person to be my perfect. I guess I don't know why they did it, but I can raise this person to be my perfect match. And then you have families who used to sell their kids. Like, they falling on hard time, they ain't no money, they don't want to start it up. Like, that's the person like, hey, I'll marry your son or I'll marry your daughter. So whatever. Most of the time it was between an adult man marrying a teenage girl, but at least that's what you hear about, especially back in the day. But you see that, and people like this is on hard times and they do that. I mean, you still look at it like that's fucked up to sell your kid like that. But I'm not in this situation where I'm literally at the point where I'm probably going to starve to death. You know, I guess that's something, but I don't think I could do that. Like, sell my kid, just, I mean, yeah, maybe do an apprenticeship or something, but not like, oh yeah, you can marry my kid. Well, you know, like some people, they have their kids, even now, like people have their kids, some people like do like a cleaning service, and they kind of start that as like their own little business. Like my dad, his stepfather used to do that. So he used to get him, my father's mother, all his brothers and sisters, and they used to go clean like offices and some people's houses. Mainly they did offices and stuff like that, and office building and stuff. But he used to do that as a kid. I'm talking about he was a little kid. He was like 10 or 11 and stuff like that. So you see that, like I said, you see that, and I lost my train of thought. Anyway, I was just thinking, I was about to say something, I lost my train. Anyway, I'm getting enough. That's enough pedophile talk. If you enjoyed my reaction, make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below. Make sure to I almost said dyke for some reason. I was gonna say like. Remember to, like I said, like, comment down below, maybe some videos that you would like me to react to. Maybe I'll do a reaction to it if I'm interested in them. Comment, share. My Patreon if you like to go out there. I'm on BitChute. I think it's called. I think it's BITCHUTE. I think it is. Where I put full reactions to TV shows and stuff out there, and of course, I put the highlights on YouTube because that's not allowed on YouTube. But yeah, you can go out there, you can become a patron if you like. It's like $1. I need to go in there and look at this stuff again, upload some more stuff, some more links. Anyway, if you stayed this long, I appreciate you, and y'all have a peaceful day. Out. Shit.